Today is not an ordinary day. October 20th is a divine appointment, a date marked in heaven long before it reached your calendar. If you are hearing this message today, you're not here by coincidence, you are here by calling. Something is shifting, something is birthing, and God is saying, I'm doing a new thing. Can you perceive it? This moment is not random, it's prophetic. Congratulations if you see this today, because you are standing on the edge of something supernatural. When we say October 20th is not normal, we are not talking about a number on a calendar. We are talking about an alignment, a convergence between time and awareness. Many people live their entire lives ruled by dates, waiting for certain moments to change them, not realizing that it's never the date itself that holds power, but what awakens in you when you meet that moment consciously. This is what I call a divine alert, a signal from life, from God, from the intelligence that governs the rhythm of everything that exists. And that alert does not sound in the ears, it resounds in the soul. You feel it before you can explain it. Something in you starts to whisper, pay attention. Something is shifting. The human tendency is to treat time as a straight line, yesterday, today, tomorrow. But spiritually and psychologically, time is far more complex. There are moments that are dense with meaning, days that carry a kind of spiritual electricity. These are not random, they are synchronized points of awareness where inner readiness meets outer opportunity. October 20th is such a point. You see, when you are aligned internally, any day can become sacred. But when heaven designates a day as not normal, it's because a specific frequency of awareness is being released into the world. It's an invitation, not an obligation. You don't have to force yourself to feel anything mystical. You simply have to be present enough to notice what is stirring inside you. Most people miss divine moments because they are distracted by noise, the constant pull of external validation, the endless scroll of comparison, the illusion that something out there will finally bring clarity in here. But the truth is, clarity does not descend on the distracted. It comes to those who are attentive. In Shaolin philosophy, there's a principle that says awareness is the beginning of transformation. The same truth applies spiritually. Awareness is the bridge between what is ordinary and what is divine. So when God says this day is not normal, it's not a superstition. It's a reminder that awareness itself can transform a common day into a sacred encounter. Think about how many times in your life you have walked past a moment that could have changed everything, a conversation, a decision, a realization, but you were too preoccupied to notice. Life doesn't shout, it whispers, it gives hints. And when you train your inner ear to listen, you start to see that these divine alerts are happening all around you. October 20th represents that whisper, the gentle but persistent voice saying, wake up. Not wake up in the physical sense, but wake up to what is real, what is unchanging, what is waiting within you to be expressed. This is not about religion. It's about awareness. It's about recognizing that you are not a random cluster of experiences moving through meaningless time. You are part of a pattern, a design, an intelligent unfolding. And when God says this moment is not normal, He's not trying to impress you, He's trying to prepare you. Preparation always comes before revelation. You cannot receive new insight while clinging to old patterns of thought. And sometimes God disrupts your normal so that He can reintroduce you to your potential. That's why certain days feel heavy, uncertain, even chaotic. Those are the days when heaven is clearing space for something new to take root. So instead of asking, what's special about October 20th? Ask, what is being awakened in me right now? That shift in question changes everything. Because when you stop looking for signs and start becoming one, your life begins to carry divine meaning. Every step, every breath, every moment. The philosopher Seneca once said, Life is long if you know how to use it. I would add, time is sacred if you know how to see it. October 20th, therefore, is not just a point in history, it's an opportunity in consciousness. If you can meet this day or any day with awareness, gratitude, and readiness, you align yourself with what God is already doing. You stop chasing the miracle and start becoming part of it. That's what it means for a day to be not normal. It's the day you decide to awaken fully to the life that's been waiting for you all along. So as you stand in this moment, take a breath and let this truth settle deeply. The calendar didn't change. You did. And when you change, time itself begins to serve your purpose rather than confine it. Because when God marks a day as not normal, it's not to make the day special, it's to make you aware that you already are. When God calls you to wake up, He isn't speaking to your physical body. He's speaking to your awareness. You might be awake in the biological sense, eyes open, heart beating, mind running, but still asleep in the deeper dimension of perception. To wake up spiritually means to see, not just to look. To recognize meaning where others only see motion. To sense purpose where others only see routine. And this awakening is what God is calling forth on days like this. We live in a world that numbs awareness. Information floods our senses every second. Our minds are overstimulated, but our souls are undernourished. We scroll, we react, we consume, but we rarely perceive. So when I say that October 20th is not normal, I don't mean that something mystical is happening to you. I mean that something profound is waiting to awaken in you. It's a call to consciousness, to break free from the dull hypnosis of repetition and remember that you are more than a product of circumstance. Think about how most people move through life. They wake up, perform their routines, carry their responsibilities, and repeat. Days blur into weeks, weeks into months, and suddenly years have passed. There's no malice in it, it's simply inertia, the psychological comfort of the familiar. But God's call to wake up always disrupts familiarity. It shakes the inner foundation, not to destroy stability, but to create clarity. Because clarity only comes when you are willing to see what you've been avoiding. When a person begins to awaken, they often feel tension, confusion, discomfort, maybe even loneliness. That's natural. Awakening isn't about escaping the storm. It's about opening your eyes within it. You begin to realize that every challenge, every delay, every disappointment was a disguised invitation to grow in awareness. The universe, or as I prefer to say, God, has been speaking all along. But until you wake up, you can't interpret the message. There's a profound line in Eastern philosophy that says, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The actions don't change, the awareness behind them does. When you wake up spiritually, the external circumstances of your life might not immediately transform, but the way you experience them does. Suddenly, the ordinary becomes sacred. The routine becomes ritual. The struggle becomes training. That's what happens when consciousness expands. Life stops feeling random and starts feeling intentional. But here's the paradox. Spiritual awakening is not something you achieve. It's something you allow. You can't force awareness any more than you can force the sunrise. You simply remove what blocks it. You quiet the noise. You observe without judgment. You become still enough to hear the subtle voice that says, I've been here all along. And that stillness, that deep, unshakable awareness, is the foundation of spiritual strength. When God says, wake up, He's calling you out of reaction and into reflection. He's asking you to stop being a mirror of your environment and start being a source of light within it. Because the spiritually asleep person reacts, the spiritually awake person responds. One is pulled by emotion, the other moves through understanding. One fears change, the other recognizes that change is simply growth in disguise. And that's what this moment, this divine alert, is about. It's not an external announcement, it's an internal activation. You begin to notice small things: how you speak to people, how you handle stress, how you treat time. You start to care more about your inner world than your outer image. You realize that your attention is the most sacred thing you own, because whatever you focus on grows. So to wake up is to reclaim your attention, to direct it consciously toward what gives life rather than what drains it. The greatest danger of spiritual sleep is not sin, failure, or fear. It's indifference. It's the slow death that comes from existing without awareness. That's why so many people feel lost even when they appear successful. They've built lives that are full, yet not alive. And the voice of God, the voice of awakening, cuts through that illusion, gently but powerfully. There's more. You were meant to live awake. So today, if something inside you stirs as you hear these words, don't dismiss it. That's not coincidence. It's consciousness tapping you on the shoulder. It's the part of you that knows truth before it's explained. You are being invited to move from automatic existence to intentional living. And the beauty of it is that once you wake up, you can't unsee. Awareness doesn't let you return to smallness. You start to notice patterns, you start to question assumptions, and slowly your perception reshapes your path. Life stops happening to you and starts happening through you. That's when alignment begins. Take a breath, feel the air enter and leave your body. For a moment, realize that even this simple act, something you do unconsciously thousands of times a day, becomes sacred when done with awareness. That's the message. That's what it means to wake up, to find meaning in what was once mundane, and to let every breath remind you that you are alive here and chosen for this moment. Because when God calls you to wake up, He's not trying to disturb your peace. He's trying to awaken your power. There's a truth that life eventually teaches every one of us. What was meant to break you can become the very thing that builds you. But this realization doesn't come while you're in the middle of the pain. It comes when you awaken enough to see through it. What looks like loss at first often turns out to be a correction, a redirection, or even a divine setup for something greater. This is what I mean by prophetic reversal. It's the unseen intelligence of life transforming what was meant for evil into a force for good. Think of every setback you've ever faced, the disappointment, the betrayal, the delay. In those moments, it's easy to believe that something has gone wrong. But the universe, or as I'd say, God, rarely wastes pain. Every disruption carries encoded meaning. The problem is that our minds interpret events too quickly. We label things as bad before they've had the chance to reveal their purpose. We judge the seed before it has sprouted. But life is more patient than we are. It unfolds slowly, quietly, and always with intention. When you step back far enough, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you begin to notice patterns. The worst moments often lead to the most defining transformations. The relationship that failed made you discover boundaries. The job you lost opened a door to your calling. The season that broke your heart taught you endurance, compassion, and the art of letting go. In hindsight, you see that the pain didn't destroy you. It introduced you to yourself. That's the essence of prophetic reversal. It's not magic, it's awareness. It's the shift from "why is this happening to me" to "what is this teaching me?" The event doesn't have to change, your perception does. And when perception changes, energy follows. Suddenly the same situation that once produced bitterness now produces strength. The same storm that once made you feel powerless now becomes your training ground for mastery. From a psychological point of view, this is the foundation of resilience, the ability to reinterpret challenge as growth. But spiritually, it's even deeper. Reversal happens not because you fight your pain, but because you surrender to its meaning. You stop resisting what life is teaching you. You let the current carry you instead of exhausting yourself swimming against it. And in that surrender, strength is born. Not the fragile strength of ego, but the grounded strength of awareness. The human spirit was designed to adapt, to regenerate, to find equilibrium in chaos. Look at nature. A forest burns, and new life begins to grow in the ashes. A river shifts course after a storm, and its new path creates fertile ground along the way. The same pattern operates in you. Every time something collapses, it's not the end. It's an opening. Every ending conceals a beginning that cannot emerge until you stop clinging to what was. So when God says, "I'm turning it around," it's not necessarily an external miracle. It's an inner awakening. The reversal begins within you first. You start seeing purpose in the pain. You begin to understand that delay doesn't mean denial, and closed doors sometimes mean protection. What once felt like rejection reveals itself as redirection. You start to see the hand of divine timing guiding every step. The irony is that most people pray for breakthrough but avoid breaking. But there is no breakthrough without a break. Something has to shatter. Maybe your illusion of control, maybe an outdated version of who you used to be. When that breaking happens, it feels uncomfortable, even unbearable, but it's necessary. Because on the other side of that breaking is expansion. The shell must crack before the seed can grow. I once heard someone say that transformation is painful because the old version of you resists death. That's true. But what if we stopped grieving the death of who we were and started celebrating the birth of who we're becoming? That's the mindset of prophetic reversal. It's the realization that pain isn't punishment, it's preparation. And here's the paradox. When you begin to interpret life this way, you no longer live in fear of what's coming. You stop panicking when things fall apart. You stop blaming others. You stop doubting your own strength. Because you know that even in apparent defeat, something divine is still at work. You carry peace into uncertainty, not because the situation is stable, but because you are. There will always be moments where you can't see the good yet, when everything still looks like chaos. That's fine. You don't have to see the whole picture to trust the process. The seed doesn't know it's becoming a tree, it just surrenders to growth. Likewise, you don't need to know how the reversal will happen. You just need to stay awake long enough to recognize it when it does. And maybe that's what God meant when He said, "What was meant for evil, I will turn for good." It's not a future promise. It's a present reality, waiting for your awareness to catch up. So as you reflect on your past, the disappointments, the losses, the unexpected turns, see them through new eyes. Nothing has been wasted. Nothing was random. Every wound was a teacher. Every delay, a preparation. Every loss, a lesson in disguise. Because in the divine economy, even your pain has purpose. And what was meant to break you was actually sent to build you. There comes a moment in every journey when what was hidden must be revealed. For some time, you've been preparing quietly, refining your inner world while life appeared still on the outside. It's almost as if you've been walking through a long corridor with no windows, carrying your vision in silence. But when God says a time of uncommon favor and visibility has arrived, that's not about vanity or fame. It's about alignment. It's when what you've been cultivating in private finally becomes ready to be seen in public. Visibility is not just about being noticed. It's about being recognized. There's a difference. Being noticed means people see you. Being recognized means they understand the value of what you carry. Many people want visibility before they've developed substance, and that's why their light burns out quickly. But when your visibility follows inner preparation, your influence becomes sustainable. Because true favor doesn't just open doors, it teaches you how to walk through them with wisdom. When you move with awareness, you begin to realize that favor is not luck. It's the natural consequence of alignment. When your inner world is in harmony with your purpose, opportunities begin to find you. They are drawn to the energy of clarity, People call that coincidence or good fortune, but in truth, it's resonance, the law of congruence between who you've become and what life brings to your path. Think of it this way: a flower doesn't struggle to attract bees. It simply blooms, and attraction happens naturally. The bloom is its visibility, the nectar is its favor, and the same applies to you. When you step into the full expression of your gifts, without forcing or pretending, you create a natural magnetism. Life responds to authenticity. Favor is simply the echo of your authenticity resonating through the world. But this stage of uncommon favor also requires awareness, because visibility can test your balance as much as obscurity tested your patience. When light shines on you, it can expose both the beauty and the unfinished parts of your character. This is why humility becomes essential. You must remain anchored in purpose so that recognition doesn't become distraction. The real purpose of favor is not to inflate the ego, but to amplify the message. God doesn't elevate you so people can worship you. He elevates you so your life can illuminate others. There's a quiet discipline in walking in favor. It means saying no to opportunities that don't align with your values, even if they look impressive. It means understanding that every open door isn't your door. The spiritually mature person doesn't chase every light. They discern which light aligns with their calling. Because favor without wisdom becomes chaos. But favor with awareness becomes stewardship, the art of using what you've been given for something greater than yourself. Psychologically, visibility is a mirror. When people start to see you differently, you'll be tempted to see yourself through their eyes. That's dangerous. The challenge is to remain centered, to keep your identity rooted in purpose, not perception. External validation can be intoxicating, but it's unstable. If your worth is built on applause, silence will feel like failure. But if your worth is built on awareness, on the quiet understanding of who you are and why you're here, no external condition can shake it. So when favor begins to unfold, when opportunities appear, when recognition comes, receive it with gratitude, not pride. Gratitude keeps you grounded. It reminds you that every season of elevation was once a season of preparation. You'll start to see how all the waiting, the quiet, the discipline, the invisible years were never wasted. They were strengthening your roots so that when your tree finally bore fruit, it could withstand the weight of its own blessing. And in that moment, you'll realize that visibility isn't just about the world seeing you. It's about you finally seeing yourself clearly. The strength you've gained, the patience you've cultivated, the wisdom you've earned through endurance. That's why it's called uncommon favor. It's not distributed randomly. It's cultivated internally. It's the kind of favor that doesn't fade when circumstances shift because it flows from awareness, not circumstance. Every great transformation moves in this rhythm. Hidden, tested, revealed. The hidden stage refines you. The testing stage strengthens you, and the revealing stage positions you. When those three come together, favor isn't a surprise. It's the natural outcome of spiritual maturity. So as you step into visibility, remember this: your purpose was never meant to remain unseen. But don't confuse being seen with being ready. Let your readiness determine your timing, not your impatience. Because when your moment arrives, you won't have to announce yourself. The energy of authenticity will do it for you. Take a breath and reflect for a moment. You are standing in a season where the invisible is becoming visible. The seeds you planted in faith are breaking through the soil. You are not chasing favor. Favor is finding you because you've become aligned with what's true. And that's the real miracle. Not that people finally see you, but that you finally see yourself the way heaven always did. There is a stage in every transformation where things begin to fall away. Relationships shift, familiar environments feel foreign, and what once felt comfortable starts to feel restrictive. This isn't chaos, it's calibration. Before elevation comes separation, and the purpose of that separation is not punishment, it's refinement. It's life or God or whatever name you give to higher intelligence, clearing space so you can expand without fragmentation. We often misunderstand this process. When people leave, we assume something went wrong. When a door closes, we think we failed. But growth always creates distance from what can no longer sustain it. Imagine a rocket breaking through the atmosphere. There's a point where it must shed its boosters. Not because those boosters were useless, but because they fulfilled their purpose. Holding on to them would only weigh it down. The same applies to us. The version of you that carried you through your last season cannot take you into your next one. Psychologically, this is one of the hardest phases of awakening. The mind craves stability, familiarity, and belonging. It wants to preserve connections, even those that limit it. So when separation begins, there's a tendency to resist, to cling, to reinterpret endings as mistakes. But awareness teaches a different perspective. Every ending is an act of intelligence. Life doesn't remove what's essential. It removes what's excessive. It clears distractions so that your energy can focus where it's needed most. And here's something subtle. Separation doesn't always mean people leaving your life. Sometimes it means the distance between who you were and who you're becoming. The old identity starts to dissolve. The roles you played stop fitting, and the goals that once motivated you suddenly lose their spark. That's not confusion, that's evolution. The soul is outgrowing its previous definition. You are becoming someone that your old self can't quite understand. In Shaolin philosophy, there's a teaching that says, before mastery, you must become empty. The emptiness they refer to is not loss, but readiness. When the cup is full, there's no room for anything new. Separation empties the cup so that awareness can pour in. This is why solitude often accompanies spiritual growth. The silence, the stillness, the isolation. They're not voids, they're wombs. New strength is being conceived in spaces others mistake for absence. But separation also reveals truth about relationships. Some people were only meant to walk with you to the edge of a particular chapter. Their role was transitional, not eternal. Trying to keep everyone with you on the journey is like dragging yesterday's weather into tomorrow's sky. It doesn't work. There's wisdom in gratitude, to bless those who leave, to thank those who stayed, and to release both without bitterness. Because the energy you spend clinging to what's gone is the same energy you need to embrace what's coming. It's important to understand that elevation is not just upward, it's inward. To elevate means to refine perception, to see from a higher vantage point. And to do that, certain attachments have to loosen. You cannot see clearly while your vision is filtered through the expectations of others. Separation brings clarity because it interrupts influence. It gives you space to hear your own thoughts again, to rediscover what truly matters. When you begin to see this process for what it is, something shifts internally. You stop mourning transitions and start collaborating with them. You realize that every time you let go, you create room for something greater. You begin to trust that the same force that removes certain people or opportunities is also preparing new ones that match your current vibration. That's not optimism, that's awareness. From a psychological perspective, this stage marks the deep integration of identity. You're learning to anchor your sense of self internally rather than externally. When relationships, titles, or routines fall away, you no longer lose your center. You start operating from essence, not attachment. This is freedom, not the absence of connection, but the ability to connect without dependency. So when separation begins in your life, resist the urge to rush back to what's familiar. Sit with the discomfort. Let silence teach you. Because silence is not empty, it's full of guidance. And the ones who learn to listen in stillness are the ones who recognize divine timing when it arrives. If you feel like people have drifted away, if opportunities seem to have paused, if the circle around you feels smaller than before, take heart. You are not being isolated, you are being refined. You are being prepared for an environment that matches your next level of clarity and purpose. And when elevation finally comes, you'll see why separation was necessary. You'll look back and realize that if certain doors had stayed open, they would have distracted you from the path you were born to walk. If certain voices had remained close, they would have drowned out your inner guidance. What felt like loss was, in truth, alignment. Take a moment to breathe that in. Every separation in your life has been sacred. It has made room for awareness, depth, and authenticity. So rather than asking, why did they leave? Begin asking, what is life making space for? Because before every elevation, something must be released. And letting go isn't losing, it's positioning yourself to rise. When God says congratulations, He's not speaking to what you have, He's speaking to who you've become. It's not the applause after an achievement, it's the acknowledgement of transformation. The prophetic congratulations is not for the finish line, it's for crossing an invisible threshold within yourself, a threshold most people never reach because it requires endurance, awareness, and trust in unseen timing. This moment, this recognition, is not about external reward, it's about internal readiness. The congratulations comes when you've finally grown into the version of yourself that can hold what you've been asking for. Many people want blessings but remain unprepared for their weight. They want expansion without structure, success without discipline, light without heat. But the divine well done doesn't arrive when you get what you desire. It arrives when you become the kind of person who can sustain it with grace. Look back for a moment at everything that's led you here. The confusion, the solitude, the silence that sometimes felt unbearable. It wasn't random, it was construction. Every detour was chiseling away a version of you that couldn't handle where you're going. Every disappointment stripped away dependency. Every delay taught you trust. When heaven says congratulations, it's saying you passed the test of faith without seeing the result. You learned to hold vision in darkness, to stay patient in uncertainty, to keep your integrity when shortcuts were tempting. From a psychological point of view, this is what's called identity integration, when your external actions finally align with your internal values. You're no longer pretending to be strong, you actually are. You're no longer repeating affirmations you don't believe, you've become the truth behind them. The prophetic congratulations is the acknowledgement that your inner and outer worlds are now synchronized, that what you think, what you feel, and what you do have become one harmonious movement. And yet, this moment of arrival is never the end. Awareness doesn't stop expanding. Elevation doesn't stop ascending. So the divine congratulations isn't closure, it's initiation. It marks the beginning of a new level of responsibility. Because every breakthrough brings with it the task of maintaining balance. Every new blessing tests whether you'll stay humble in visibility, grateful in abundance, and grounded in wisdom. That's the paradox. Success demands more stillness, not less. The higher you rise, the quieter your inner world must become. You can't carry noise into elevation. And so, even in moments of reward, awareness whispers, don't lose your center. To understand the power of divine congratulations, we have to step away from the cultural idea of victory. The world often celebrates outcomes, achievements, possessions, titles, but heaven celebrates awareness. It celebrates the moment when you stop moving through life unconsciously, when you begin to act, speak, and create from understanding rather than reaction. That's when your life begins to operate on a higher frequency. You become an instrument of alignment, a vessel through which divine order flows naturally. And that's something the world rarely notices, but heaven always does. Because unseen integrity is more valuable than visible success. The private victories of discipline, forgiveness, and perseverance are the foundations upon which real favor stands. When you keep your heart clean while the world tests your patience, when you choose compassion in places where bitterness would be easier, that's when heaven whispers, "Congratulations." It's not about perfection, it's about progression. It's about awareness deep enough to recognize growth in yourself and grace in your story. You are not the same person you were a year ago or even a month ago. You've evolved quietly, sometimes painfully, into someone more intentional, more conscious, more rooted. You've learned to trust timing, to respect endings, and to move through change with a sense of peace instead of panic. That is worth celebrating. So if you've been waiting for a sign that what you've endured has meaning, this is it. The universe celebrates silently, but consistently, when a soul becomes aligned. You may not hear thunder or see light flashing across the sky, but you will feel it, that subtle assurance that something in you has settled. You've crossed into a new vibration of readiness. The prophetic congratulations isn't for what you've gained, but for what you've released. The fear, the doubt, the old identity that couldn't hold your expansion. Take this in. Your waiting season was not wasted. It was wisdom training. Every unanswered prayer was an invitation to trust, and every closed door was protection disguised as delay. Now, the doors that open will do so because you are ready, not desperate. You are moving from survival into stewardship, and that's the shift that changes everything. When life stops being something you chase and becomes something you shape. So stand still for a moment in gratitude. You've made it through battles no one saw. You've outgrown versions of yourself that once defined you. You've walked through uncertainty and emerged, not just standing but seeing, more clearly, more consciously, more courageously than before. And that quiet strength, that deep awareness, that peace that no circumstance can shake, that is heaven's applause. Because when God says congratulations, it's not for what you've achieved. It's for who you've awakened to become.